Yeah, I think for myself, it's unique. We're figuring it out a little bit, um, and it's been a journey. The last 10 years building DI to what it is to be able to focus on innovation and future proof ourselves, which in turn will help future proof our dealers. And what that means is less of the day to day grind and more of the putting the pieces together that I know will sustain us into the future and drive the most value to dealers.
Like, I just imagine, like, where I sit today in my own company, it's so hands on.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and where I was at Cox Automotive before was so hands off. Um, it's and sorry to bring them up on a cars refresh Friday, um, but the transition from going
Real
from
talk.
what's that, Joe?
So this is real talk. It's good.
True, true. Um, that transition was kind of was nuts. I mean, I definitely love the strategic side of the hands off and being able to design the prototype car, so to speak, and then letting the teams go out and figure out how they're going to actually make it. Whereas then the other side is the hands on, where you're part of that team that's actually making it and trying to prototype the thing at the same time. It's very different
Yeah,
dynamics.
and the thing that if you haven't realized it yet, you will. Once the plane takes off and it's in the air, so to speak, the challenge becomes a lot different. You don't the
Yeah.
It's not on the ground, right? It's in the air. You don't have the luxury of landing it. So you gotta use all the tools you have at your disposal to really maintain this plane and grow it to get it to its destination. Not to keep just using metaphors, but it's real, and you just don't have that luxury anymore of thinking about, oh, how do we make this perfect. So you have to use the pieces and parts that you have and create more capacity for the plane and efficiency. But at the same time, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. So it's a different problem. It's completely different. And I can tell you that hindsight's 2020 always when you develop something. And there's certainly a ton of lessons I've learned. So I'm here for you if you need anything.
I appreciate it, Joe. Once we got 5 seconds, I got something else to throw out there on that topic. But here we go. So everyone sees us now; they don't just hear us. But on that, continuing with that string of thought, my uncle, his name's Steve Snyder, and he owns the Checkered Flag Auto Group, and he said to me, oh God, I can't remember how many years ago, and I can't even imagine if we had this conversation today how much has changed. But he said when he first got in the business, which he was a PhD, Papa has dealership, and he got involved really full time, I think, in the 80s. And he said when we first started doing this, or when he first started doing this, it was like being on on the or on a road, and everybody's on a 10-speed bicycle, and if the chain fell off the bike, you could get off and you could take your time putting the chain back on, and no big deal. But today he's still riding that same 10-speed bicycle, but everyone's on the interstate and everyone else has cars. And even if the chain falls off, you have to keep pedaling this thing to keep up. And
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, that's another good metaphor for growth and scale and learning from your not only your mistakes but just through history. I mean, things are evolving very fast, as you know, and we're all seeing it today. So that analogy I used before we were on live about the planes being in the air, there's a time 10, 15 years ago there wasn't a lot of traffic in the air. Now there's a lot of traffic, so now you have to deal with that on top of everything else.
Oh yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Advertising's changed effectively. The market structure is just the intensity is way up.
What's good about your position, Alex, I think, is like you saw the other side first, and now I feel like you're taking the moments to enjoy your journey. And a lot of times as an entrepreneur, if I had to give advice to anyone, it's to really enjoy the journey. And I was listening to something the other day, and it's actually Eddie Vetter from Pearl Jam talking about the early days of Pearl Jam and how many mistakes he made. And he wished someone told him, like, hey, it's going to be okay. It's going to be all right, because he would have approached things differently. So I think the way I see you operating your business is you have a really good mindset for that, and calmness, and just, the advice I would give is enjoy those moments.
You got to celebrate the wins.
Yeah.
It's really easy to let those pass by.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, speaking of wins, I believe that's why we're all here today, right? In cars, like, so one, I don't know if I'm speaking for the broader audience. I know I'm speaking for myself, and that we've gone from thinking of the organization as Cars.com to now it's Cars Inc. And I was glad to have a conversation with Jacob over there, where he was filling me in last week on the real vision of what is in store for Cars Inc. And I got to say, I bought in. I like it.
Thanks. Yeah, we do as well, and it's incredible. Like that, when I was sitting in a chair outside of Cars, I saw Cars as a marketplace, and I see Cars in a completely different way today. And that way is looking at the assets we have that have just built up over the last 2 decades plus, namely our audience, our inventory, and the value that we keep providing to dealers, and that we aspire to provide even more value to dealers. But one of the things that shocks me, if you think about Cars.com, or how I thought about Cars.com compared to how I think about Cars now, is the editorial content that Cars produces, which drives this audience that we built over the last, like I said, 20 plus years. I mean, you're talking like in 2021 alone, we did 1,000 expert reviews, articles, and I know we were all everyone here and many people listening were in the SEO game, at least still are to some extent, but we always, like, the last decade plus, focused on content, like generating content, answering customers' questions. Cars.com was doing that before SEO was a thing. We have this editorial team. It was evident yesterday when Elon tweets out the AMI index, and when we saw that happen, like, where does that happen? Like, what other marketplace has that, or what other platform? And what happens when that exposure gets released? Drives a lot more awareness to Cars.com, a lot more values to dealers. And that's the kind of content that we've been creating for so long. And I just didn't even realize it sitting on the other side. I saw it as a listing service. And I could tell you that having worked with Alex the last 4+ years, it was our anniversary on Valentine's Day, believe it or not.
Did you guys get each other gifts?
Beautiful.
I think he forgets every year, and I message him and I'm like, hey man, happy Valentine's Day. But it's it's one of those, honestly, that it's just like, and proofs in the pudding. We just made 2 acquisitions in the last 6 months that were pretty substantial, like pretty big investments. We're putting our money where our mouth is and adding value to what we've already been creating. So I guess that's my long-winded way of saying that the vision is becoming a reality. And for us, the right to win is on audience, inventory, but it's on providing dealers value. Like, how do we keep doing that? And we wake up with that mindset on a daily basis, because as we talked about earlier, the planes in the air and the traffic in the space, metaphorically speaking, is just going to get busier. There's just going to be a lot more startups coming, innovations there. But the one thing, man, and I've sat on this M&A side for a while now, is building up that audience is so valuable, and we're passing that value on to our dealers.
Well, I remember way back whenever you guys acquired a couple different editorial sites. If I'm not mistaken, you had acquired them. My goodness, probably 10 years ago. I assume that you still have those branches of editorial spots, and I can't remember what the names were, but I mean, you guys were sort of ahead of the game way back then. And who worked for you that was I would say probably your first SEO type of content manager? His name's right on the tip of my tongue, but I don't know if he's still with you or not.
Well,
I think you're going back before Joe and
you're
Bill's
going back
time.
probably
Yeah.
before us.
Oh yeah, yeah, I'm going way back. Well, I didn't know if he was still there or not. It'll probably come to me a little bit later. But do you still? And I'm sure you are. But what kind of? I should add. What type of traffic comes from those editorial sites, content sites that's pushing the traffic to cars.com?
Well, we often forget about DealerRater as one example. It just surpassed 10 million reviews. DealerRater is huge, and if you think about the power of that review content, it's incredible. You think of newcars.com and these other websites that Cars has had for a long time, RepairPal having a stake in them, and a lot of other ones that have curated over time. So you may not even realize how powerful the editorial pieces are coming from even outside of cars.com. So it definitely drives a ton of referral traffic. Our earned media is substantially greater than our unearned media. So essentially our organic traffic is much greater than our paid traffic. And as we all know on this call, like that's more valuable traffic. And that traffic comes from one, being smart enough to buy the domain name cars.com 20 plus years ago. And then secondly, building that trustworthy editorial content that's given value to the consumer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I forgot about the
RepairPal.
Yep.
Yeah. But I mean, if you think about the intelligence that DealerRater's been collecting, and you guys may or may not know this, but during COVID, there's a time period when COVID first started that Google stopped reviews online. Like they just would not allow or post reviews. So this is just an example of a player in the market that has complete control. So a dealer has a strategy, right? And they spend a lot of time and money. And I know I did this as a car dealer in the past of how do I curate reviews, how to respond to them. They have all this process and Google shuts it off overnight, right? Well, DealerRater was collecting those over time and they were able to pick up that slack because they're focused on it. And this is the problem with some of the third parties. And we saw this with Facebook Marketplace less than a year ago, when overnight the Facebook Marketplace that dealers were relying on and getting some value from just turned off. So it's just like, that kind of stuff is a lesson to just look at how these larger websites look at the automotive industry and how I believe players that are vertical are going to win. You don't come to cars.com or you don't go to cars.com to look for, I always say this, like toasters, right? It's just a silly example, but you're going to go to Amazon and look for that and maybe Google, but you're not going to go to cars.com. You're going to go to cars.com to look for a vehicle on that. So that first party audience data is so important. And that's something we've been collecting. And if you look at the traffic that's coming just to cars.com and DI websites collectively, you're looking at 245 million visits on a monthly basis. So think about in that perspective of the total market of someone searching for a car in a given month. We dwarf anything else out there by understanding who's actually in the market. You don't accidentally go to cars.com.
It's also the verticals you're talking about there, Joe, and the difference between some of the horizontal guys that are out there is that like the vertical guys their livelihood is based on effectively providing a service to the industry, right? Where these other guys are effectively looking within the segment and, does it do good things for us across our other segments? It's not, it can come and can go. Obviously there's good money there while it's running, but how long can you plan on it effectively being there? So it's a planning and alignment thing that is a continued investment to make sure that effectively it's done the right way.
Yep.
Well, let's and guys, you're like before we got up on the live broadcast and everything. There's a number of questions that are coming to my mind. I'm doing my best not to ask them right now because there's some other pieces here that I think we should dive into for the audience's sake. first. And one of those stems off of the Refresh Friday we had last week. So we had Spencer Beckstead on, and he was talking about some changes Google has made and are getting ready to make, and was talking about some of the things that might do to impact quote unquote third-party classified sites. And I think that terminology was a bit of a red flag for somebody or a few people at the Cars Inc. And after that, I had a call with Jacob Whitler, who was just commenting a moment ago, and he shared with me what the future of cars is. And again, say it like I really bought in, and I like the definition. And I'm intentionally not sharing that because I want to leave that to you guys to be able to put forth. And what is taking cars out of the traditionally thought of just third-party listing sites and everything that comes with that?
Well, the platform versus being an aggregator.
Yeah, and I think it starts with when I think of business, when I think of websites, I look at the website itself, but you got to kind of take a step back and say, okay, well, where's the audience coming from? How are people finding that destination, and what's happening when they get there? Well, how are people finding the destination is what I alluded to earlier, that editorial content, that the brand name, like literally if you Google cars, just the word cars, like we're going to show up there because we have very authoritative name because we've had it for a long time. So once you get to the website, what happens next? Well, you have to provide value that's not a race to the bottom. That's not just gonna show vehicles because of they're the lowest price. That it's gonna actually give you information about the dealership, reviews, salespeople, the customers should connect with, all these different value points. And then once you get a little bit lower down that funnel, you can play with payments. You can really kind of start to curate vehicles that are right for you. And then that's where the magic of Accutrade and CreditIQ come in. So what's the blocker, Alex? You know this from having a digital retail platform. It's the blocker of
leads.
Let's say consumer going from start to finish online when the dealership's closed. Like it's 3 a.m., the customer's pumped, they've been doing research all night, they can't sleep, they want to make a deal happen. Well, one of the blockers is to get a trade-in value that's guaranteed, like because there's always estimates there, and we have a tool and we have an estimate in there. Well, now with Accutrade, we actually back that trade guarantee. So now that number doesn't become an estimate; it becomes a finite number that the consumer can actually use and count on. And same with that dealer to allow them to move through that process of transaction. And then this is where CreditIQ comes in. Now the consumer is deeper in that funnel. They're ready to go. What would happen in the past? They would submit a credit application. It would sit in the platform, DealerTrack Route 1. It would sit in the credit app portal. They would come in the next day. They would pull that up. They manually type things out. They send it to a bank. CreditIQ is going to automate that process. But it's really important to state this, not take anything away from the dealership. We're not looking to become a lender for an OEM dealer by any means. We're helping facilitate that deal, move it through the pipe faster to have a better consumer experience. And that's where, again, we're looking at acquiring, and we're looking at getting specialists in these places that are better than what we were before, because the sum of our parts are going to be so much greater than just the parts itself.
So when I think, at least in my head, when I thought of like cars.com or any other consumer-driven third-party, quote-unquote, classified site, I always thought of it as like the customer experience stays there and ends there. And one of the cool things I think with the acquisitions that you guys have made is that it doesn't have to. So to your point of, what was it, 245 million visitors a month when you aggregate Dealer Inspire plus cars.com, you're looking at it on the whole there. So that, the experience doesn't have to just live in that third party site. It continues. Is that, am I getting it? Is that?
You're 100%. So if you think about Shopify, like what's their power? Their power is you can type in your phone number and it's going to pull up your information. It's easy to shop, so you don't have to stay on Amazon. You could go to these independent websites and Shopify knows who you are. So the same thing applies for cars.com, Dealer Inspire websites, and so forth. And I believe, and I think we've talked about this before on the show here, that the telephone number becomes the new social, because you type that in there. It doesn't change often. Obviously, through authentication and everything, you can pull up a customer record, doing what your tool is doing, Alex, like grabbing info from the DMS section. So you have this kind of file folder of this customer information, and you're able to pull that up across the ecosystem to make that consumer experience so much easier. So then when we have partners and when dealers want to use this technology, what happens? It's like applying a Shopify model that you don't have to retype everything. Like, you're reducing a friction point significantly. And that's the play here. And it's really, again, it's like just helping the dealer get that transaction through the pipeline and through the funnel at a lot smoother rate than they would otherwise.
I love that, by the way. I think it might be getting to the point. I'm trying to think of where I heard this, but people are easier to find by their cell phone than even their social security number these days.
I believe that.
Yeah.
The other side is the VIN. So if you got a VIN that they own and a cell phone number, man, you like.
So here's again the kind of power that we are creating tools and software that dealers can use, right? And if you think about the competition out there and what's happening, there's large dealer groups, there's large platforms out there that are creating these kind of walled off gardens, these native finance experiences. Outside of that ecosystem, the smaller dealer, the dealer with let's say not the bandwidth or the power to advertise nationally, it's going to be harder to compete. So we're trying to create this level playing field where you are able to compete by piggybacking on all of the things that I just mentioned: our technology, our audience, our inventory data. And then you think about the trade-in piece of this and the data we have from Galves. Galves is the oldest supplier of data in terms of the valuation of vehicles. They've been around since 1957. I mean, think about that. 1957, they've been curating this list of vehicles on VINs and the values and those values over time. So they've seen vehicles multiple times. They can predict what's going to sell. And that is why Bob Hollinshead, it's amazing to have him on our team, because he's the king of wholesale. He literally sells 500,000 vehicles on a yearly basis to the auctions. Like, it's incredible what he's doing. And who better than that to tell us what a car's worth? You know what I mean? It's just like
I remember when he bought Galves too. He was excited to have Galves as part of the family over there. And for that man to get excited about anything used car in terms of doing something new and wrapping that in, it's cool to have Bob nearby now. I'll say that for sure.
Yeah.
Different experience.
And he's operating as if he's like 25, 30 years old. Like, he just fresh mind, fresh ideas, going after it. So again, to think about the power of Accutrade and the software, and we didn't even get into the in-store experience yet, but it's badass.
Hold on, there's a comment on the screen. Todd Caputo, missed you, buddy.
Shout out to Todd. Yeah.
Glad to see you. The old used car king.
Yeah, what's up, Todd?
So all right, so this is one of the questions Roberta gave me since we started. And hopefully this doesn't make you guys uncomfortable in any which way, shape, or form. But we have really two generations of acquisitions into the Cars family. And I think in both cases, neither of you had gone into a public company before. Am I right there?
That's correct.
You're correct. Yeah.
Hey, I have my own experience in that endeavor. So this is why it's a burning question in me. I'm just curious, what has been the Joe, you've been at it for a while now. Bill, you're very fresh. What has your experience been like?
Well, hopefully Bill's has been a little bit different because I've been mentoring him through some of it. It's not, I'm sure he's going through things himself. So I'd say it's been like refreshing in a way. In another way, you have to learn different disciplines. Like when we were like DI was very ready, fire, aim, like in a good way. Like we were creating, innovating, thinking of things. It was less about how is this going to impact our financials, prioritizing. Like it was just like constant this innovation engine. And what's been awesome about the experience, and one of the things why I chose cars and 4 years ago was that Alex committed that innovation engine would still be alive. Like no one would, like that's why they wanted us, and that's why I've been able to step up into the organization in this role. I mean, the story goes, as you very well know, Alex and Jeff, you've seen this a ton too. Is once a company gets acquired, the leadership team wanes out pretty quickly. I mean, it's been 4 years, so
Yeah.
I've learned a ton. I've learned so many new skill sets, like navigating a public company. I would say the biggest things that I had to get better at is budget, like this fiscal discipline is, just like planning things
That's
out.
not a bitch at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's like that stuff and policies, like I didn't have every single thing. Like the minute I had an idea, I could go do it. And in many ways, that was a good thing, because what happens is when your company grows to a certain point, it's risky when you do that stuff. So, I was able to learn from my mistakes in the past and really learn a kind of a new set of skills. But I commend cars, because if it wasn't like that and that was just talk, I wouldn't be here still. And it's been very real, and it's been a positive experience. And I mean, Alex and I've been through like 9 different lives together already. I could tell you. I mean, he should write the book because he's been through it more, and I've just been on his side during most of it. But it's been an incredible ride. I mean, so many things have happened, and to be at this place now through a lot of that is just an amazing feeling. But I won't take up the whole segment to talk about that. I'll let Bill try in his experience.
I'm only like 100 days in, so this is kind of, I'm still in the beginning of it, where it just feels like the hose is just starting to slow down just a little bit. It's, being on the other side, if it's fun, effectively, I'll say executing it with increased scale real quick. It's because effectively, like with a lot of what we're doing, we're partnering with major parts of the company, which means that we have to do all kinds of coordination and work to just plug in. And so, that part of it's fun. That's basically what we've been doing for a while with a lot of our partnerships down that same kind of route. But the scale here is a nice addition. I won't say that I'm kind of at the point of expense report mastery quite yet, but that's coming along. But at the same time, it's like I can see, I think that there are definitely harder, larger, older companies that have all kinds of stuff, and I'm enjoying where we are right now and the opportunities that are in front of us. I mean, like there's basically like a lot of enterprise initiative right now to get things done, right? Effectively, from where the company is and like where we are right now, we have hard problems on our hand. Like it's still got that startup kind of thing that you have to deal with, which is that it's not necessarily how do you mobilize 10,000 people. It's how do you actually get these hard things done more quickly at greater scale. And I think to a certain extent, all of us are in it to have those kinds of moments when
you mean you got to live up to all those promises you just made?
Yeah, big deal. Got to show up and do something today. So it's good. We can see we're already on the glass. Like we've made progress. We're already up. So the reality of today is happening. We've got ambitious numbers in front of us in terms of what we're to go hit, but I can see where things are going. Looking good.
Good. Well, on that note, so CreditIQ was definitely the big news. and we're very happy to have you on Refresh Friday. God, was that November, December?
Yeah,
It's definitely last quarter.
Yeah, November.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
God, it seems like it's been longer
know.
than that. Things are moving fast. But now there's Accutrade. And what's so before we dive into that, I do want to give some kudos, and I don't mean to make this show like a full love fest here, but if it's coming across that way, my apologies. But the kudos I want to present is like there's a lot of big companies in this space, and maybe they're holding off because NADA is right around the corner, but Cars is the only one I'm really hearing visionary thoughts behind. And
yeah, it seems like a lot of
kudos to you
companies
guys
sort
for
of
that.
stalled out.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a Joe Chura all day on that one. It's at the end of the day, we have to do this the right way, and it has to plug in for the dealer side of the world. And sometimes it's the simple shit, but you got to get it right.
So what's going on with Accutrade?
Well, you obviously know the product. I think you know Bob. Who doesn't know Bob in our space? But it's been a while in the works, and we are ecstatic about this acquisition. We're going to do a few things immediately, which is have the ability, the easy one that is probably obvious to everyone out there is having this experience on dealer inspired websites and the ability to have that natively plugged in there, but also having the differentiation is we're going to have a backer of the actual value itself. So when we show a consumer, here's what your car is worth, we're going to back that up, and that's basically using Galp's data and using the historical information, like Todd chimed in there a little bit ago, saying Galp's is the Bible. It's a very trusted source, and it's real. Like that. Those numbers are trusted by many, and they come from being at the auction in the grind on a weekly basis. And most of the time I talk to Bob, he's there. The second thing we're gonna focus on, this is really exciting, and I don't mean these to be one and two, they're really gonna work in parallel, is the ability to have a diagnostic tool to plug physically into a vehicle to get a deep appraisal report. And that's something we hope to show off at NADA, how it works. But if you think about the power of where that can go, and dealers have used these sensors for a while, mainly to diagnose service and whatnot. But imagine now the frontline has it, the variable ops team, and they could within seconds plug this in. There's no mistaking the VIN number. It pulls a deep diagnostic report. Kind of reminds me of going to the doctor and getting that yearly physical done, or going on the DEXA scanner and seeing all that information, and will allow that information to then get re-ingested into Accutrade. So think about what I was talking about earlier, is the data that we are now collecting. And in some ways, like some of this data, this has been run through the Accutrade system, some of these vehicles, like 4 or 5 times over the last decade or so. So we're really trying to help dealers, and we will be transforming the in-store experience, thinking about how do we remove friction, become more accurate for that consumer. And the implications of this, the things I get really excited about as far as innovation. Imagine now dealers have these tools. They could literally, within their neighborhood, set up we'll come to your house and we'll give you a trade-in in your driveway, a trade-in number, within seconds. And you can imagine the things from there. I don't want to go too far with that, but it's just a crazy opportunity to have this tool to get things right. And then that comes with appraisal software and a lot of other things. And then the other thing we're working on in parallel too is this dealer to dealer network of trading backed by all these values. So you're going to have once you scan your vehicle in, then that's going to be pushed to a centralized system where you can look at it, and we're going to be using our historical inventory analytics data to predict the probability of that selling. and then that can drive a dealer's action to send it to the auction or not. So that's just the scratching the surface there. But there's a ton more, obviously.
That's a hell of a scratch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you also earlier you touched on.
What?
Go ahead, Alex.
Hold on, Jeff. Before you jump ahead, I just want to ask one on that topic. What kind of information might come out of there?
Oh, any sort of diagnostic code, any historical code. There's a report of 100 different things that are on that vehicle. So VIN number, obviously mileage, again, any sort of service codes that have been on there, various dates in for service. All of this data is kind of centrally stored now. So it's again not dissimilar to looking at a medical record, but it's of a vehicle.
Gotcha.
Technology.
Yeah.
I know. As you were talking about it, I was thinking back to when I was selling cars, and we could actually present the actual credit report to the customer that came off that basically FICO printout machine that you had to hand type everything into. And
well, man, I remember taking the little black book, and I'm sure this is still done today. Going through the values, and then at the end of the week, I had to do a water report, which I still have nightmares about, on every vehicle on a weekly basis. And that's when I learned the power of December in the used car market, or not the power of December, I should say. All of a sudden, I'm doing this water report, and I'm like, I just got crushed and lost a ton of value in that month. And you just learn those things, but just the ability to automate that and predict what's going to sell and not sell, and give the dealer options to offshoot that inventory. And then, if we know something's going to sell, the inverse can happen. Then it hits our marketing system, and we would automatically reduce bidding on those vehicles. If you're doing dynamic bidding through SEM, or you're really advertising that vehicle anywhere, like, why bid on a vehicle that's going to sell? So the first step is figuring out what those vehicles are, getting those in your system, and then taking action on them. And it's just a smart way to do business.
So I can see a service record from a diagnostic machine on cars.com now. All those used cars.
Yeah,
and here's the actual records, Mr. Customer.
Yeah, and there's companies that exist now that just do that, right? That just do these like used car value reports, or the service condition reports. At DI on our, we get to see a lot of these third parties come up first because the dealers ask for integration, and this wouldn't be dissimilar to that in the sense of the same consumer experience. I think it's going to have a richer data set, but it'll be a similar experience.
Yeah. I don't know, like Carfax has that one owner report. You guys might have like actually serviced on time report.
Yeah.
Serviced on time.
Non-procrastinated vehicle. That's it.
That's right.
All right. Sorry, Jeff. I didn't mean to. I did mean to.
No.
But,
yeah, I know. No, I forgot what I was going to ask. But earlier you were just talking about how to integrate into the showroom and the process at the dealership. But you sort of touched on it, and which sounds pretty freaking exciting, to use that Accutrade piece. I think we find that's where a lot of these different programs fail. Because they don't know how to mesh with the process at the dealership on the showroom floor. So seeing that you've got this Accutrade piece, be able to plug it in, or even go to someone's house, plug that in, and have all the data there, and be able to give that trade price real time. I mean, I'm sure you don't want to leave everything out of the bag, but is there any other areas that you see maybe in the future that you would be able to plug into that showroom process?
Yeah, I mean, this is where Bill and his technology and his experience and vision comes into play here, is that I know Francis just asked a question, and he was talking about the end-to-end experience, and do consumers want that? The reality here is, whatever the consumer does, it's really important to have that experience continue on, no matter where they're at, no matter when they come back. Like, you shouldn't be asking consumers a bunch of times the same exact question. So one of our main points of focus is going to be the in-store experience holistically. Like, what does it look like when a customer comes back? So think about the customer stories that you see happen, Jeff, on a daily basis. Customers start a deal online, they come in, they start a deal, they go back home to think about it. I mean, there's a million scenarios. And I think what Bill's thinking about right now is like, okay, how do we help the financing aspect of that? And how do we streamline that process? And again, if you have the valuation of the vehicle, that takes a big chunk out of there. So the customer goes home, they understand why their vehicle is valued at a certain number, but now they have all this financing and retailing flexibility because of the information on CreditIQ and the ability to then transact some of that stuff in an automated fashion. But Bill could touch on some of the vision too of the in-store experience.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. I mean, I'll say there's a lot of opportunity there in terms of what we figure out and where we are. Obviously, we're seeing people scratch on the surface again in terms of what the in-store platforms, in-store SPOC and hybrid platforms that are out there that are supporting more of this kind of function. Like, this is not new entirely, right? Like, dealers effectively using their payments quoted on their websites goes back over 10 years at this point. And I think what we're just going through is the process of bringing the integrations together possible to just tighten up the process. I don't think current sales processes are like DOA today. I think it just comes down to the transition in the market is going to happen according to the store, the location, the policies in terms of what they run. But the Accutrade stuff is, I mean, I could tell you from a process standpoint, it's pretty exciting because what you're talking about now is you get all of the tooling that would allow you to put a number on the car, use third-party validation, and run a continuous process where it's every trade gets a walk around, and that walk around generates a report, and the report shows effectively why that price is being marked the way it is, right? It's, at the end of the day, you're trying to have a process that lets you validate what you're doing at the right time in that transaction. And these guys know cars better than anybody else. From effectively a trade and wholesale valuation, it's who you want to be effectively providing your back end, given that they're committed to making sure that they can provide the merchandising tools to the dealer, and it's there. So it's pretty exciting to think about how that becomes part of the process and how you link that in. So it's easy to go either user to user or same user and give the person on the floor that kind of tool. Now, I think I saw a poll somewhere, probably on LinkedIn, about frequency that trade-in evaluations were being done with a proper walk around with customer, and what the, I'll say, process adherence was there. And people's expectations, generally speaking, were in like the 70 to 80% ballpark, which, if that's self-reported, that there's a lot of flaws there. So, I think that, again, it's bringing the tools into the process, running the same process every time, and having these kinds of guys actually back it up and build it is going to be pretty interesting in terms of where the future is.
Did you guys catch Todd Caputo's question about Accutrade and online
Todd,
shopper?
It's definitely going to be integrated with online shopper. That's one of the first orders of business, and something we've been working on for a bit. But yeah, I mean, it also just think about this, Alex and Jeff, and those out there. The Cars app, the Cars application is one of the most popular apps in the App Store for automotive. It has been for the last decade plus. But the value of, once a consumer buys the car, we really want to plus up that value. In other words, like, why would a consumer keep that app after they buy a vehicle? One of the ways would be to constantly provide them updates on their vehicle, on their vehicle's value, and maybe push them, like you talked about earlier with your new tool. You're working on equity mining. The vehicle value stays within your application. At any point, the consumer can make it public. Then it goes to the Accutrade dealer network. Mm-hmm. So you see it as it's a stock, and then when incentives come out and when there's the right time to buy, we can argue.
Yeah,
We can predict that. and
Put that
then
together for
prompt
real-time
that.
payment.
We got another question from the audience. He wants to know if you guys are going to put Truecar out of business. I mean, is Accutrade going to continue to power Truecar? Sorry, I misread that.
Yeah, they will. They will. So that is for the foreseeable future that will continue.
And if you answer the first one affirmatively. So what else is coming for NADA?
Yeah, you guys gonna have any parties?
We are. I want to invite you guys. We would have loved to get a Refresh Friday, but I know before the show, you told me you guys weren't coming, which is a bummer. But it's we're gonna have a party on Friday nights at Top Golf. So anyone listening is welcome to come. You can find more information on either dealerinspiredcars.com. Chances are you received an email. We'd love to have you there.
I think I saw an ad on Facebook this morning.
There you go.
Yeah,
Good job, marketing team. Who I know is watching.
Yeah.
At least it's targeted.
pretty targeted ad.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys had mentioned there's going to be a neat thing at the booth, it sounds like, where there's going to be the ability to do live broadcasts, and maybe there's something we can do on that Friday.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
We'll talk that one through after the show.
Yep.
So did you? I think you mentioned that you're going to have at your booth this Accutrade piece. Are you going to be showing that off?
So we're working on bringing an OBD sensor and connecting it. One of the things that this happened obviously fairly recent. Next year, I'd love to bring a car there and put it in the middle of our booth and show all the technology that we have and that we're working on and how it actually works with the vehicle. This year, it's a little too late for that, so we're going to do our best to demonstrate what it can do. But stay tuned for next year because we'll do some more with it as well.
Y'all are just scratching the surface of that one.
Yeah, I know.
Ever since you brought that one up, Joe, my head has been flying down that path. And I'm trying to continue staying tuned to this show, but my head keeps flying and like, what can you do with that?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure they've got a big blackboard somewhere that they've got it all mapped out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the thing that we're really focused on is Cars Inc. that may be different as we're looking at these top priorities, and it's not like we have another 100 things we're going after. We're really focused on this deep vertical integration, and that CreditIQ is on top of the board, and Accutrade is right there as well, and that's our mission. We're not trying to be 1,000 things to 1,000 different people. We're really focused on that, and at the end of the day, it's about providing dealer value.
There were two comments that came in. One was from Chris Leslie about everyone's already made their acquisitions and whatnot, and then there was another one about the end-to-end platform play, and I see it a little differently than maybe that thought that. I put my dealer hat on, like, yeah, I've heard that platform play 5 million times and everything in the same basket. Yeah, whatever. Nobody's pulled that off. I don't care. And then I've had my vendor hat on and been at another organization. It was like, buy this, buy that, buy this, and figure it out in the end. And what I've seen differently from cars is there is this seemingly focused path. And it's starting to become apparent to me. I hope that at NADA and through today's show and what you guys have planned on the marketing side, it starts to become apparent to the industry as well. I like what y'all are doing.
Well, we definitely appreciate that, and I'll say that in looking through the friction points that we've had as an organization and the technology that we'd want to build, because as an entrepreneur, as an automotive leader, you want to build everything yourself, but we have to, we realize like, okay, well, we don't have relationships with banks like CreditIQ does. We don't have the technology and the the system that they already have built. So it made perfect sense to explore that option. Same with Accutrade. We haven't been collecting value since 1957. We're not in the wholesale game on a weekly basis. And I think to Chris's point, if people already have their acquisitions, that's great. I think it's, we waited and we really identified what our need was, and we really are diving into not just big revenue generation companies. Neither of the acquisitions represented that necessarily. Like, sure, there was revenue on both of them, but it was more of how do we get really smart partners that can help us evolve and actually make this platform a reality, not an idea. And because you're right, and execution's hard, man. Alex, you know this. You see it. It's hard, and when the plane's in the air, you can't land it and figure things out. You gotta work on it. And sometimes you need to get different planes around you and faster pilots and different people, and that's what we're doing.
It's
construction
it's
going on.
exciting to see where y'all are going. It's refreshing to see, and I don't mean to say this in a negative way, but a large organization innovate. It's not
No, I get that.
not something we see in any industry these days.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I give Alex Vetter and team a ton of credit for that, and now we have Bill, who's insanely smart, 10 times smarter than I ever was with regards to financing, and he's helping lead that. So we feel great about the people, and that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe. I think it's also another thing here that we are acknowledging that the business needs to evolve, right? And I'm not saying that the business is going to change overnight. I'm not saying we're trying to change the business overnight. It's just that the tools need to start hitting the timing and need to start integrating elements of the transaction. Like, we just have to have a conscious awareness to what's going on right now in the market. The other acquisitions that we may have seen in the past, and I don't want to speak to any of them individually because a lot of good things have been done, but it's a different era in the market today than it was 5 years ago. And to go along with it, it's effectively that consciousness about where we are and how we have to effectively support how things are evolving is a little bit different. You know, a lot of those acquisitions were run the silo more efficiently, scale it up. And now we're talking about how do we integrate effectively data services to recognize what customers want in terms of how they want to interact to benefit effectively the dealer for the service that they can provide. And that's just a little bit of a departure from where things were in the past and like what the purpose of those acquisitions were. So hopefully, we're doing good things over here, but hopefully we're able to execute them at the level that's expected. We're going to go through it. We're going to make sure that we're doing it the right way. We got to just keep running that process the right way.
Yeah, I think that's right on what Bill said, and that just made me think of, if we were to be first to market acquiring companies, the companies would have been so much different a few years ago. Like, our thinking of what we needed would have been different. And really, when you kind of go down this path, you figure out there's better people that can do this. There's smarter people than us in these areas, and that's what got us to where we're at today. And we're going down that path. There's a lot of areas still of opportunity, and we're looking for great partners out there and smarter people in those areas.
Maybe that's a silver lining to COVID, is that it's brought focus, at least from the business side of it.
Yep.
Before we let you go, does Repair Pal fall into any of this? I know you guys acquired, Cars.com acquired that several years ago, many years ago, actually. And my guess would be there was a little bit of struggle in trying to figure out exactly where that fit, or maybe just didn't fit initially where you thought it would. Does that play any role right now with what's going on with these latest acquisitions?
It's not playing any role in this first phase, Jeff, but that's not to say there's not a role to be played there. It's been less of our focus, and we're really working on this other stuff first.
I just didn't know if it tied in with the whole showroom piece and how you're implementing the Accutrade. So cool. Yeah. Well, if someone wants more information on NADA, how would they grab that other than being receiving a targeted ad on Facebook.
I think that the team is posting some comments now. growwithcars.com/NADA is a great place. You can reach out directly to me or Bill. And yeah, we'd love to see you there. It's just going to be amazing to see people in person again. It's been a long time, at least for myself. I haven't been to a conference in a couple of years.
I hear you.
Yeah, I wish we were going to be there.
Hey, Alex, I want to say before we leave this conversation that I don't know if everyone knows this out there, but what a great carpenter you are. And my computer is sitting on the desk that you had built for me. I think that had to be like 5 years ago. So I found out Alex was a carpenter. I needed a desk in my house, and I was like, I need to commission you to build something. It's amazing. So I don't know if you're still doing that, but I can highly endorse its quality and it's how good it's held up over these years.
Well,
Where's
at
my
least
desk?
lasted 5 years.
You know, the one thing I didn't realize though is the shipping. And then afterwards I tried to, I'm like, wait, how am I going to get this here? Because it's all one piece. So I had to get a driver to go get it, which was worth it for sure.
Funny part, for those who care, Joe hit me up and we went through a bunch of consulting on it. Like we figured out the wood, and we went with Sapele, which was a really cool mahogany-like wood that kind of stands up outside, inside. It's super durable. And then I think I cut the first desk at like it was probably 3/4 of an inch and was way too thin. So I had to rebuild the whole thing over in a much thicker slat, and yeah, that was a fun project.
Yeah, no, you did a great job. You're super talented. I don't even know. I look at this, I'm like, how's it even holding up? But it is. Great job. Great job.
Well, that's my real passion. Screw all this technology and car business stuff.
Right?
Wood.
Right?
Alex likes his wood.
I do like to make things in the wood shop. All right. Well, thank you all. And I really look forward to seeing what the or seeing the full car's vision come to life. And it's
It's going to be exciting.
I look forward to talking more about it in time, because this is not a small project.
No.
It's definitely good. I want to thank you for your support, the folks on DealerRefresh. I haven't seen the whole chat section because I just see the questions come up, but I know Ryan, Chris are there, and Todd Caputo, and just everyone who's tuning in has been supporting Dealer Inspiring Cars. Honestly, we couldn't do it without you, and thank you. And if you want to be part of any betas or anything we have going on, please let us know. George, you guys are all awesome and great supporters, and we truly appreciate it.
Thank you all
Bill,
again.
Joe, thank you so much. Thanks again.
Happy Friday.
Always a
Thanks,
pleasure,
guys.
folks. Thank you.